The Chicken Asylum, an Alex Reynolds mystery. Author, Fred Hunter. Publisher, St. Martin's, Griffin, New York. Narrator, Eric Aust. Chapter 10. Mother was sitting at the kitchen table when Peter and I came downstairs the next morning. She was clad in one of the many silk kimonos she'd bought on the trip to Japan she took after my father. Her ex-husband died, leaving her more than reasonably well off. This one was shiny black, with appliques of Japanese lettering in white, like an ankle-length happy coat. Only not quite as busy. "I haven't started breakfast yet," she said as we came into the room. "I will in a minute." "Thank you, Honorable Mother-san," I said with a bow. "You look very serene this morning. Have you been meditating?" "I've been having a bit of a think," she said, setting her cup in its saucer. "And I may have a little idea." Before she could tell us what it was, the phone rang. I answered it and was confronted with a familiar voice that sounded panicked. "Alex, it's Stevie." "I know who it is," I said, quickly trying to cut him off. I hadn't wanted him to say his name. I'd told him not to call us unless it was an emergency. But he was flaky enough that I wasn't sure he knew what an emergency was. After yesterday's scene with Fredericks, it wasn't safe to call us at all. "Gee, it's been a long time," I continued. "What?" "Since we heard from you. What have you been up to?" I said a silent prayer that he would catch on. "Oh, for pity's sake, Alex. This is no time for your spy games. I just got home and..." "This isn't a game," I said loudly, cutting him off again. "Everything I told you was true." He sighed. "I just got home. And don't tell me now, not on the phone. Tell me in person." There was a tense pause. Okay. If we have to play, I can do that, too. When do you want me to meet you?" Although he still sounded impatient, there was a bit of uncertainty in his voice, now as if he was just beginning to believe in the spy games. My mind raced. Whatever had happened, it really must be bad. I tried to think of a way to meet with him without the feds being able to monitor us. "Well, the thing is, Peter is working today, so I don't think we can see you until late. Very late. After 11? "But you know, Yes, I know," I said loudly, "but listen to me. Peter is working today, so we can't do it until after 11. He huffed. I could almost see him rolling his bug eyes. "Alex, you know "Yes, I know," I said quickly. "But we can't see you until after 11. Peter is working today." Come on, you could do it," I was thinking. "Oh," he said at last. "I see. Do you?" "Mm-hmm." He didn't sound very sure, but I said goodbye and hung up anyway, feeling that if I tried any harder to get it across, I might as well just come out and say it. Please, God, make him understand," I said to the ceiling. "What is it?" said Peter. "There's a problem." "Another one," said Mother. "That was Stevie." "Lord, what's happened now?" "I don't know." I stopped him before he could say anything, but he wasn't doing his Trelamagne Lipschitz routine, so it must be bad. "We're going to meet him." "How can we do that?" Peter asked. I think I was able to set it up," I said slowly. "I think he's going to come to us, or at least to you." "What?" I gave him a not very gentle hint that I think he got, at least I hope he got. "I heard you. You told him we'd see him tonight after 11, but that's not even possible. Didn't he say he's on the late shift?" "Mm-hmm. Yep." I said. "Then what?" I was trying to tell him that he could meet us where you work at Farhat's. Peter squinched up his face doubtfully. "You think he got that?" "I'm not sure. I hope so." "Why on earth would you want to meet him there?" Mother asked. I shrugged. "There's nothing but gay men in and out of that place. The FBI can't follow them all." At 9 o'clock, Peter left for work, and I went with him. We didn't know if Frederick's men were prepared to follow one or both of us, but it didn't matter, since either way they'd end up at Farrat's. We just had to hope that if they'd listened to Stevie's call, they thought our meeting was at 11 that night. If they didn't, then we were banking on the fact that they wouldn't be able to tell our caller from the rest of the customers. "Did you notice anyone?" I said as we went up the stairs to the Fullerton stop on the red line. "Nobody in particular," Peter replied. "But who can tell? It's still rush hour. There's too many people on the street." The same was true of the L platform. Although there were fewer people than there would have been an hour earlier, there was still enough to constitute a crowd. We couldn't very well scan them to see if anybody was paying particular attention to us without looking like we were looking for someone. If you know what I mean, that would have only made what we were doing look more suspicious. So we agreed to try to put the idea that we were being followed out of our heads and try to act naturally, as much as that was possible. We got off the L at Division and joined the minor surge of people up the endless stairs to the surface. Then walked down Rush to Oak Street. I tried not to look behind me, but given the fact that it would have been a little more unusual for someone to be following this exact route, my curiosity got the better of me. A couple of times as we passed shops, I looked sideways as if something in the window had caught my eye, and let my head turn as we passed until I got a glimpse over my shoulder. About half a block back, there was a guy in a pale yellow polo shirt and a pair of gray slacks. He looked so casual and unassuming, I was sure he was a Fed. We turned onto Oak Street and headed east. About midway down the block is the Esquire Theater, which was once one of Chicago's movie palaces, but has long since been gunzooed into a Cineplex, saving only the beautiful Art Deco facade as we passed it. I grabbed Peter's arm and stopped. "Wait a minute." "What?" he asked with surprise. "Pretend to look at that." I pointed at a poster for some generic Julia Roberts movie. "Why?" "I just want to say something." The box office was to our left, and a placard listing the show times for all the films was suspended just inside the window. I turned toward it and tried to appear as if I were searching for a show time. Out of the corner of my eye, I looked back down the street. The unassuming guy had stopped at the store on the corner and was giving the impression of being fascinated by the window display. "That does it," I said. "Let's go." "What does it do?" said Peter as we continued down the street. "We were being followed." He naturally started to turn around to see for himself. "Don't look," I said. He stepped forward and sighed. "I'm married to Laura Petrie." "I'll point him out when we get inside." Huts is just a couple of doors east of the theater. Nobody knows where the store got its name, except perhaps for owner-proprietor Arthur Dingle, who isn't telling. Peter's theory is that Verhat was the surname of one of Dingle's long-lost loves. I personally believe it's German for fairy house. The building that housed Verhat's had undergone a change a decade earlier. That was exactly the opposite of what had been done to the Esquire. The interior was spared any renovation atrocities, while the facade had been torn off and replaced with a floor-to-ceiling mock bay window. In the window, 3 ghostly white, anorexic mannequins stood sporting obscenely expensive Italian suits in colors that ranged from olive green to olive drab, which is probably why Italian suits always look like you can squeeze oil out of them. We went through the door to the musical accompaniment of an old-fashioned overhead bell. The store was long and narrow, with carpeting roughly the same shade as the suits in the window. The walls in the front 2/3 were lined with racks of suits, carefully spaced to avoid wrinkles. At gaps in the racks, there was huge monochrome vases from which sprouted enormous dry reeds, a sure sign that Dingle had never heard of feng shui. The remainder of the store has shirts, ties, and underwear, all bearing price tags that have actually caused wallets to go limp. A glass case across the back of the store held an array of accessories, ranging from gold cufflinks to diamond stick pins. The place smells like old money, old rotten money. "Good morning," called Benny Harper, one of the other salesmen. He was spritzing the case with Windex. Benny was a tall, willowy man with fashionably oiled black curls. He was wearing a black knit shirt and black pants, which made him look like an upscale stagehand. "Good morning, Benny," said Peter. "Hi," I added. When Benny saw me, he dropped the Windex on the counter with a thud, and his eyes widened. "Alex, I don't believe it. There is a God. I haven't seen you in 100 years. Don't tell me you finally decided to stop being the fashion disaster that you are and let us dress you properly." I hadn't realized until that moment that I hadn't given any thought to what I was wearing. A coral-shaded gauze shirt and a pair of jeans. I looked down at myself and then back up at him. I haven't decided. I would love to get you out of those clothes." "That's my job," Peter said with a smile. And Benny smiled back and snatched a paper towel from a roll behind the counter, and then started to wipe the blue mist from the glass counter. "Oh, well, Alex, don't you worry none about how you look. You're dressed better than at least 10% of the guys that come in here." I laughed. "Thanks a lot." "Is Art here?" Peter asked. "Mm-mm. He called in and said he's not going to be in all day." "Is he okay?" Benny puckered his lips. She sounded like she was calling from just south of death. "Is he sick?" He leaned over the counter toward us. "Just between you and me and anyone else who cares to hear about it, Grandma had a date last night with someone half her age, and she can't even burn the candle at one end anymore without landing herself in a wheelchair, much less burn it at both ends. She'll be in tomorrow." "Look," I said to Peter. My attention had wandered back to the front of the store. "What?" I nodded toward the window. The guy I thought had been following us had paused there to light a cigarette, although he wasn't giving any indication of looking in. "Look at what? That boy?" said Benny, craning his neck to see past us. The guy stuck his lighter in his pocket and moved on. "What's the big deal?" said Benny, puzzled by our interest. "I wouldn't clean my teeth with a boy like that." "That's the one following us," I whispered to Peter. "Let me show you something in the window." We went to the front of the store, and Peter went through the motions of drawing my attention to the suit on the first mannequin. I pretended to be interested. We both knew what we were looking for, and we found it. The guy had crossed the street and seated himself on a fire hydrant, where he seemed to be contemplating the gutter. "Could just be innocent," Peter said doubtfully. "I don't think so, but I've only seen one. I was expecting one for each of us." He smiled. "You sound disappointed." "Maybe they thought since we left together, we'd stay together," I said distractedly. "Alex, what are you thinking?" I gave him an impish smile. "It might be fun to try to lose him." For what?" "If he is watching us, hopefully he's just going to think Stevie's a customer, assuming Stevie shows up. Wasn't that the plan?" "Yeah, but if I could lead that guy away from here and lose him." "If you did that, wouldn't he just come back here?" "Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought of that," I replied, somewhat crestfallen. "I hadn't tried to lose a tail since Mother and I ditched a Russian at the zoo. Not everyone can say that." "Just relax and go with the simple plan, will you?" said Peter. I noticed for the first time he sounded a little tense. "All right." He straightened the mannequin's collar, and we were about to return to the back of the store when he said, "Hey, look." I followed his gaze. The guy had stood up and was crushing out a cigarette. He then looked both ways and crossed the street at a diagonal heading away from us. "Well," I said, feeling even more deflated, though I don't know why I should have. "We certainly didn't want someone following us. Either he wasn't tailing us, or he's just changed to this side of the street. I think I'll go see if he's standing down there." "I think I'll have you committed," said Peter, taking me by the arm and ushering me toward the back of the store. "We're in enough trouble without you acting like Charlie Chan's number 2 son." My anxiety level rose as the minutes ticked by without a single customer entering the store. Benny continued cleaning, and Peter spent his time straightening the suits with an unerring eye for symmetry. I stayed at his side. I wish you had a few customers, I said. So do I. I don't mean that. I mean for cover. I was hoping there'd be a few shoppers for Stevie to blend in with. Said Peter. We're probably better off without. Why? Remember how easily Agent Fredericks passed himself off at Charlene's? Oh, yeah. I wonder if the feds have a whole stable of reasonably attractive young men who can pass for us. Makes you wonder what they need with us at all. There's no substitute for the real thing, Peter said wryly. It was 11:05 when the door swung open, sending the gentle shop bell into a violent spasm. Steve rushed in, looking like I'd never seen him before. His normally florid skin was pale and drawn, and his eyes were blank. "Thank God you're here," he said, heading straight for me. "I didn't know if I understood your silly—" "Stop!" I kept my voice low but urgent. "Pretend you don't know me." I snatched a suit off the rack and made a pretense of examining it. Stevie came to a halt at my command and crossed his arms. "For heaven's sake, Alex!" "I'm not kidding. We're being watched from outside." "What?" "Don't look." He stopped just short of wheeling around toward the front window, then turned halfway back to me. "Okay, I'm not supposed to look at you, and I'm not supposed to look at whoever's outside. May I ask you exactly what I should look at?" "A suit," I said. He sighed dramatically. All right." He stamped forward to the nearest rack and began to finger the material of one of the jackets. "Okay," I said. "Now, I'm going to take this one back to the dressing rooms. You look around for a couple of minutes, then pick out a suit and come back there." "Hey, is this silk?" I clenched my teeth. "Are you listening to me?" Yeah, he said wearily. Wait a minute. Then pick up suit, go to dressing room." "Good." Do I get to keep the suit?" I hissed at him, then headed for the back of the store. On the way, I told Peter what we were doing. "Fine, I'll come back there with him," he said. I went to the curtained entryway just to the right of the glass cabinet where Benny was sipping coffee and leafing through a copy of GQ. He looked up as I passed and did a double take. "All these years I've been trying to get you in fashion, and you're going to buy that." I looked down at the suit, draped over my arm, and stifled a gasp. The one I'd haphazardly plucked off the rack was a bizarre shade of purple that was awfully vivid, even though it was fairly dark. I wasn't only surprised to find it was the one I'd grabbed, I was surprised they had it in the store. Yeah, I said vacantly. "I like the color. I just thought I'd try it on." He shook his head slowly as he went back to his magazine. "You look like a fag pimp." I paused through the curtains. The elegance of Ferrats didn't end in the front of the house. It was carried on to the dressing rooms. There was 4 of them, each large enough for 2, with padded L-shaped benches and full-length mirrors. They also had proper doors for privacy, rather than those idiotic salon-type doors that are the staple of tacky stores. While I waited for Stevie to come back, I stood in front of the mirror in the first dressing room and held the suit up in front of me. Benny was wrong. I didn't look like a gay pimp. I looked like a tall glass of Welch's grape juice. I quickly hung the suit on a hook when I heard someone coming through the curtains. Stevie appeared carrying one of the olive suits away from the others. I couldn't tell which shade it was, which he hung up without even looking at it. Peter was right behind him and shut the door, closing the 3 of us in. "You didn't call us from your apartment, did you?" I said to Stevie. He pursed his lips. Up until I got home this morning, I thought you were just pulling my chain. Not that I would have minded that either, with all this stuff, but after what happened, I'm not so sure." "What happened?" I asked anxiously. No, even though I don't believe it myself, I did not call you from my apartment. I went out and called you from a payphone on Clark, because if James was really just some friend of yours who needed a place to stay for a few days, I don't know why he'd do what he did." "What'd he do?" I said loudly, losing my patience. Stevie glared at me and emitted a huff as if he'd already explained everything, and I was just being slow. He's gone. What? I exclaimed. What do you mean he's gone? Peter asked. I mean, I got home from work at 7:45 this morning, and I found myself home alone. He was gone. Maybe he just went out for a little while, I said weakly. Peter looked at me as if I'd finally suffered a mental collapse. He's always expected. Where? I don't know. I turned to Stevie. Are you sure he just didn't step out? He shook his head. He took all of his things, lock, stock, and duffel bag. Was there any sign of a break-in? Peter asked. Stevie shook his head. No, he was just gone. The place was quiet as a mouse. Jesus Christ, Stevie, I said. You were supposed to watch him. How could you let this happen? Well, excuse me for having to make a living, he replied haughtily. But I have a job, you know. You didn't tell me I'd have to chain him to the radiator before I went to work. I thought he was supposed to want to be in hiding. I was brought up short again. Once more, James had managed to throw doubt on his real motives by his own actions. You're right, he is supposed to. I'm sorry, I yelled. It's all right, he said with a flip of his wrist. We fell silent for a minute, then Peter said, Did anything unusual happen? What do you mean unusual? I mean, you didn't notice anybody watching your place or hanging around or anything like that? No, nothing like that, he replied with a nervous laugh. I narrowed my eyes at him. Was there something else? Did something happen between the two of you? He looked down at the floor. Alex, you know I'm not the kind of person who would take advantage of a situation, I suggested. Betray trust. I was going to say kiss and tell. You slept with him, I exclaimed in shock. Alex, keep your voice down. Benny's out there, said Peter. You slept with him, I said in a lower but no less intense tone. How could you do that? It's not like I forced myself on him, he said defensively. I made up the couch for him to sleep on, just like a good little hostess. But hell, I wasn't in bed 15 minutes before he came into my room and crawled into bed with me. He said he was scared. He said he was scared, so you slept with him. Stevie drew back disdainfully. Well, I've done a lot of things with guys in bed, but I've never scared anyone. That's not the point. We left him in your safekeeping, and you took advantage of him. All I did was try to comfort him. He climbed into my bed, and I held him. Before I knew it, he was all over me like a cheap suit. He paused for a second, then added, A cheap suit that fit very well. I don't believe this, I said, sinking to the bench. We leave someone in your care, and you... Stevie, I told you he just came out of the closet. He's in a strange land. Aren't we all? There's no telling how much you might have traumatized him. Traumatized him, Stevie said, his voice cracking. Traumatized him? What about me? I was thoroughly lost. What about you? What about my feelings? I can be traumatized too, you know. By what? Tears welled into his eyes. You cast that waif on me out of the blue and expect me to know what to do with him. You didn't warn me how sweet he was. He's an enduring little refugee, I know, I said. He just sleeps with me and then runs off without a word. I know my batting average has been bad, but they don't usually flee in the night. What are you saying? Peter asked. You've got to find him and make sure he's all right. I don't want to think that I was the reason. I suddenly felt abashed when I realized that he was thinking. I got up and put my arms around him. Peter stood behind him and rubbed his neck. No, I said quietly. It's not your fault. His tears were flowing freely now. It's just, you know how some guys can be about their first time. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. There's more going on here than embarrassment over sex, said Peter. Stevie pulled away from me and looked at him. You really think so? Mm-hmm. Because, well, you see, it happened that the first night, and then, I was off yesterday, so I was with him all day, talking and talking. He wasn't out of my sight until I went to work last night, so I thought maybe he was just waiting for his chance to get away from me. He might have been waiting for his chance to get away, but not from you. Stevie managed to convey his gratitude through his tears, then seemed to realize how damp he'd become. He fished in his pocket for a tissue. He's so sweet. I just can't bear the thought of him being out there alone. He paused to blow his nose. Jesus, he's gay and at large in Chicago's. It sounds like my youth. I hated to sound like Nelson, but I had to ask him the next question. Do you have any idea where he might have gone? Did he mention anybody or any place? No, nothing. What'd you talk about? Have you ever tried to have a conversation with him? It's not that easy, even as darling as he is. There was a short silence, and he added, He talked about the two of you quite a bit. He did. Stevie nodded. Yeah, all about how wonderful you are. I wish... Whatever he was wishing brought on a fresh onslaught of tears. You guys just have to find him and make sure he's all right. We intend to, I said. How? Peter asked. I don't know, but my voice trailed off because I really had no clue as to how we'd go about it, but after a few moments I began to see a glimmer. Wait a minute. Stevie, did you really call us from a payphone? Yeah, he said with a sigh. Why? Did you make any other calls when you got home from work? No. I got home and found he was missing, then went out and called you. And since then? No, I didn't call anybody, he said, impatient for me to get to the point. Does your phone have automatic redial? Yeah. Then do me a favor. When you get home, do that and see what happens. What are you thinking? Peter asked. That maybe James didn't just run off on his own. He might have called somebody before he left. Maybe we can find out who that was. We can't get Stevie's phone records without telling Nelson what we know. What about Frank? I shook my head. He may be an area commander, but he's not going to get phone records for us, at least not without an explanation. And the minute we explain, he'll have to do something about it. Look, it's just a chance, but we should take it. What if somebody answers? Stevie asked. Hang up. He reared back slightly. Then what the Sam hell is the point of doing it? I'm hoping you'll get a machine. After all, it's the middle of the day, and a lot of people say their number in their messages. Boy, that's a long shot, said Peter. Maybe, but it's about all we have. Before leaving, Stevie made a stop in the bathroom to wash his face and generally pull himself together. Peter waited for him in the back while I went into the front of the store so that it wouldn't look as if the three of us were together. Much to my dismay, I found that a couple of would-be customers had come in while we'd been in the back. And they could have been innocent shoppers, especially since neither of them was the guy I thought was following us. But in our present circumstances, I had to view the timing of their arrival as suspicious, even if just for safety's sake. One of the customers was a tallish man of about 30 with dusty blonde hair who was lingering uncertainly by the first rack of suits. He was dressed in a tan cloth jacket and a pair of light blue slacks and was slowly touching the shoulder of each of the suits. Shifting them slightly for a better view, his puzzled frown made him look like he'd never seen a suit before. Benny was waiting on the other customer, a fey young man who was slightly over 5 feet and had dyed white hair. There were 3 diamond studs pierced through each ear, as well as dangling ear cuffs. He wore a skin-tight white t-shirt and denim cutoffs. He looked like an even less likely candidate for an Italian suit than the other customer. However, the attention with which Benny was serving him meant that he was known to the shop, so I figured he could be ruled out as a potential agent. Benny inadvertently helped me maintain the illusion that I was shopping. He smiled over at me, pointing to the suit I'd grabbed for cover, and said, "Oh, what do you think?" "You were right," I said with a laugh. I don't know what I was thinking. He immediately returned his attention to the little guy, and I wandered to the front of the store. I don't know how long it would be before Peter and Stevie came out from the back. So, I seized the opportunity to find out if this guy was really a shopper or was an agent. As I got closer to him, I happened to glance out the window and saw that the guy in the pale yellow shirt had returned to his perch on the fire hydrant and was lighting another cigarette. Fighting an increasing feeling of claustrophobia, I sidled up to the would-be customer as nonchalantly as I could, tried to seem as if I were still making some decisions about the suit. When I was fairly close to him, I held the suit out at arm's length and tisked lightly. "What do you think?" I said, turning my head slightly in his direction. He glanced at me, then looked the suit up and down. "It's kind of a weird color." "I know, that's why it caught my eye, I guess. Under the lights in the dressing room, it looks even worse." "Oh, well." I hung the suit back on the rack with a sigh. "The stuff here is a little out of my league." "Yeah. Do you usually shop here?" He shot me a sidelong glance. I hoped I wasn't being too obvious. No. This is the first time I've ever come in here." He paused and added, "How about you?" "Oh, I come in from time to time. I don't know why." "What brought you in?" He hesitated. "I don't know. I just wandered in. No reason in particular." He was attempting to sound casual, but there was a tenseness in his voice that gave him away. For an agent, he was awfully unprepared. "You weren't looking for anything?" I asked. "No," he said slowly. "But you never know what you might find." He certainly was being cagey, although I'd set out to feel him out. I got the feeling he was very subtly trying to turn the tables on me. "I don't know how much luck you'll have here. I never seem to find anything I want." "Maybe your luck will change." "Maybe." He took a deep breath. "My name is Tony. Tony Davis." He offered his hand, and I shook it confusedly. I hadn't known another agent to take such a direct approach. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Peter and Stevie emerge through the curtains. Tony didn't show any sign of noticing them, which in itself was suspicious, since if he was an agent, he would make a point of ignoring them. Peter said, "Sorry we couldn't help you," as he took the suit from Stevie, who then left the store. As Peter went to hang up the suit, I realized that Tony still had hold of my hand. I slipped it away. "You know, there's a Starbucks just around the corner from here," he said. "Yeah, I know." "Want me to buy you a cup of coffee?" "Want to buy me a coffee?" I asked with surprise. It took a moment for this to break through. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm married." "Oh," he replied, looking flustered. "I thought you were." "No, I wasn't," I stammered. I was just looking for, an opinion on the suit." "No, really. You see, that guy over there, he's my husband." Tony glanced over at Peter, then turned to me, and a little smile appeared. "Oh, I get it." "You do?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, and then took my hand and pressed it into my palm. He leaned forward and whispered, "Call me when he's not around." Before I could try to explain, he waggled his eyebrows and headed for the door. I looked down at the card, then nearly jumped out of my socks at the sound of a throat being cleared behind me. I turned around and found Peter eyeing me with one raised eyebrow. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Sure." "Were you just making a date with one of my customers?" "Well, to be perfectly accurate, he was making a date with me. I mean, trying to. I broke off. I could feel my grave getting deeper. "Yes." "I was just, I would never." I stopped again, took a deep breath to calm myself. "I was trying to find out if he was an agent." Of course you were. I was starting to go red in the face. You know I love you more than anything. Benny and the little guy stopped what they were doing and looked over at us. Peter put his lips close to my left ear. I know. I just wanted to hear you say it. He kissed my earlobe and laughed. Jimmy Chan. Honest to God, one of these days I'm going to kill you, I said. You know I'm not just being paranoid. I know. Look, I cocked my head toward the window. And what? I looked across the street. Our tail was gone. Oh, no. He was there. He was back. I sighed. All that trouble we went to, and he found Stevie anyway. Maybe not. He was following us, remember? He might have just gone out of sight again. Oh, so, did you get anything more out of Stevie? Nope. I can't believe how broken up he is about this, Peter shrugged. It can't be easy to have lost somebody he was supposed to be taking care of. I don't know about that. We've done it twice in the past 3 days. You know what I mean. Yeah, I know. I shut my eyes and put a palm to my forehead. I can't believe James has run off. What I can't believe is that you told Stevie we intend to find him. I opened my eyes. Well, why wouldn't we? He glanced at Benny and the customer, who were deep in conversation, and lowered his voice some more. You must understand what this means. No, I don't. I didn't say this very convincingly because I really did think I knew where he was going. Alex, he ran away when he was perfectly safe where he was, and he didn't come back to us. That doesn't look good. I think it's time we entertain the idea that Agent Fredericks might be right about James, no matter how unpleasant that idea might be. I don't know about that, I said, finding myself in the uncomfortable position of arguing against something that in my heart of hearts I knew was a possibility. Hell, I suggested it myself. There could be other reasons for him running off. Maybe he didn't feel safe with Stevie. I don't mean... I know what you meant, Peter said, rolling his eyes. For all we know, despite the precautions we took, that Jihad might have found him and taken him. You really believe that? I sighed wearily. I don't know what to believe. Alex, if you're right, and he called somebody before he left, all it'll mean is that he made a call. He stared at me for several seconds. Look, honey, I felt as much sympathy for James as you have, but I think we have to face facts. That's just it. We don't have any facts. So we don't know what's happened. I think we have to find him. Peter looked at me for a long moment, then relented. All right, how do we start? By calling Mother? A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.